It took me several days to find it. The hive of the wasps, carved into the ground with a large gray dome covering it. The wasps seemed careless, almost lethargic, as they crawled in and out of the hive. A few of them came back with some sort of food for the hive. Unfortunately for some, they were still alive as they were dragged into the hive. I turned my head as a man was still fighting the wasp as it forced through the doorway of the hive, being dragged by more than one. As he fought, another wasp came up again and began pulling at his free leg. Even at altitude, I could hear the flesh tear and the screaming echo through the air as it faded. At least he'd be dead from blood loss before they got him all the way inside. Gliding back to the big group, I couldn't help but to come up with a plan to take these things out. With the hive that big, guns are pretty much ineffective. So it's time to go a little medieval on their bug ass. Talking with all three groups, we came up with a plan to take on the hive. However, we would have more than just 5 flyers, as we had before. Though the leader of the big group fought me on this for a while, given the state of his homestead, he didn't have much of a choice. The female lizards began to train with the 2 avian females from the large group. As preparations for the assault were made, I looked in on their progress of the 2 flyers. Unfortunately, progress was very, very slow. Since they had never used their wings, they had to build up their muscles in order to even glide. Though once they did, it was truly a sight to behold. Unlike me, they could flap their wings, at least to a point. This allowed them to take off from a simple running start. Even more remarkable was the younger one figured out the timing to take off from a simple standing position. When I noticed this, the oldest of my kitties got a little jealous and climbed under my arm to give me a hug. Though I have problems with most facial expressions, I could read the look on her face. Maybe I should give my girls some extra attention tonight so they don't feel this way. The night of the attack came soon enough, too soon for most. All 7 of us were loaded up with as much as we could carry as we took flight an hour after dark. Though the avian girls couldn't see as well in the dark as we could, they could see well enough to follow us. It was a good call to wait until it was a full moon. Even though this was a simple plan, we needed a way to egress if things went very, very bad. I took point, being the strongest flyer, to make sure that the flying V was maintained. This way, they could save their energy for the battle ahead. Coming up to the hive, we didn't see any movement. It seems like they can survive the winter, but they still have to sleep at night. Good, I thought. This will give us the element of surprise. Signaling to the group, we all got ready to unleash the hell that came with us. Pulling forward one of the Molotov cocktails, I had a slight issue lighting it due to being in flight. Once I did, however, I only had a few seconds to get it on target. Diving down, I aimed at the center of their hive. Using the style of the old dive bombers, I dropped the bottle of liquid into the center of the hive. The outer shell was pierced with ease as the bottle fell into the hive. As I pulled away, I looked back to see nothing had happened. I thought to myself, oh shit, what if it doesn't catch? And with that, a burst of light came out of the hole, meaning that the bottle had actually ignited. This was the signal to the others. Circling the hive, they began to break into a line and drop their bottles into the hive, each one falling into the hive and piercing the outer shell. With every new hole, there was a burst of light that flowed into the night sky. After 2 passes, it was easy to see that the inside of the hive was engulfed in flames. Yelling to the group, "Final flight!" meaning we would drop the rest of our ordnance and get the fuck out. Watching them go into action made me a bit proud. There was no hesitation or even a near miss. They flew like professionals and they all hit their target. As the last 2 before me began their run, we could hear all sorts of sounds of screaming coming from the hive. The bugs and everyone else still alive were desperately trying to escape the flames. Wasps flew and climbed out, partially ablaze. Most only got a few meters before collapsing to the ground. It looked like the videos from the Pacific Campaign in World War II. I felt no remorse for those big wasps flying straight up, on fire, just to have their wings burn off as they tumbled back into the flames. It was when we saw something big. The hive split open as three much larger wasps began to crawl out. They didn't look any different, just a lot bigger. I don't care who they are. The sight of the wasp the size of a small yellow school bus will make anyone have ice water run through their veins. Without a second thought, I dropped my last two jars onto the hive. They hit one directly, which set his entire body on fire. The one next to it was pulled halfway into the fire as it screamed. Realizing I only had one shot left, I dove at the one not hit. It looked at me as I threw the final jars onto it. The jars shattered, but nothing caught fire. I screamed, "Fuck!" just as I saw it turn at me and get its wings ready to clear the hive. Desperately, I tried to gain altitude as I could hear screaming from my group. Looking at them, I could see they were in a holding pattern as they waited for me. Out of sheer fear for their safety, I screamed at them, "Go! Get the hell out of here!" They hesitated for only a moment, so I yelled, "Now!" With that, I could see them all turn towards the large homestead. Looking back, I could see the big wasp begin to flap its wings in an attempt to lift off, but its wings had been damaged and it seemed to drop back on its bulbous ass. When it did, it immediately raised its wings again. Just as its wings fully extended, the oil and diesel I had thrown on it finally caught fire. I could see the flames climbing up its body. Being a thick fuel, I could see the flames climb from its torso all the way to its head in about 15 seconds. It still took flight, but like the others, it fell to the ground with a massive thump. The trees around it piercing its exoskeleton and locking it to the ground. It flailed for a few seconds before just going quiet. As I flew away, I couldn't hear anything coming from the hive, at least not anymore. We received a hero's welcome upon returning. Each of the three homesteads had come to meet us and assure that we were all okay. The avian girls took the compliments, but they're not like me. They were so tired that they just want to sleep after a quick meal. The rest of us did stay up a bit longer, though, and enjoyed the party. In a debriefing with the leaders of our respective groups, I told them about how everything went. Though they were happy with the outcome, the leader of the large homestead was still hesitant to let his avian females patrol the skies. I had to remind him that we just took out a hive of the nastiest creatures I had seen still roaming this planet. If the roles were reversed, and the wasp had ambushed the homestead, they would have been the ones being used only as food right now. Not only could they patrol, but communications between the groups is beyond important. The fastest way is to contact everyone through flight right now, especially given the terrain. He was not happy about it, but he did eventually and hesitantly agree. We could all find a place to stay that night. I took the night watch since I really wasn't tired. This put my girls in a bad mood, but everyone would need sleep. Most of us would have to go back to our prospective homes, and that would take almost the entire day for many of us. Though flying only takes about an hour and change, most everyone has to walk. The next morning, as everyone was leaving, I went back to the hive to make sure that it had been scorched. Also, to make sure the fire didn't go wild. The smell definitely gave it away as I approached. The smell of burned carcasses and oil filled the air. Circling the area, I could only see the charred pit where the hive once stood. That and scorched bodies. Convinced that it was completely burned to the core, I turned towards the neighbor's house on the river. I had promised them that I would swing by before heading home, and they had said they had a surprise for me. Okay, now what?